Ferrari have suffered yet another disaster class of their own as both of their drivers had to satisfy with P8 and P10 in a horrifying weekend that could have ended with a double podium finish. After the ruined opportunity and deciding to remain for one more lap on the slick tyres, Hamilton and Leclerc opened up about what could have been, which prompted a lot of talks as to whether or not there is something that can be changed in the culture of the team with Hamilton's arrival. But with McLaren's dominance ahead and the Verstappen factor being too big to ignore, are Ferrari set for another failure of a season? There is no question about it. Melbourne has been a big fumble for Ferrari. After a massive hype for the Italian squad, it turned out that they are nowhere near the top in terms of decision making, which in conditions like the ones we met in Melbourne is quite crucial. When both of the McLarens went wide at the ending stages of the circuit and Norris entered the pits, Ferrari had an opportunity to enter as well, but they decided to continue. Seeing Max enter the pits was not convincing enough either, and even Leclerc's offer to split the strategies between both of the cars was not accepted, primarily because they didn't receive the same information from their race engineers. Hamilton was told by Adami that the rain is going to stop in a short period of time and that they can hold on to the slicks, which is why the 7-time world champion wasn't too aggressive in the pursuit of an alternate strategy. On the other hand, Bozzi said to Leclerc that they are expecting a Class 3 rain for a couple of laps, that they're definitely not going to survive on the slick tyre. This is the ultimate example as to how this team is looking dysfunctional in terms of communication, and the disbelief was shown from Hamilton during the radio messages where he exited the pit lane under the safety car conditions caused by Alonso. He even used profane language, something he could get fined by the FIA, even though he apologised because he didn't realise the radio was on. When talking to the media regarding the race outcome, Hamilton couldn't hide his disappointment because he expected a lot more from a car that was supposed to perform extremely well in these damp conditions, adding, "The race was very tricky and went a lot worse than I thought it would go. The car was really hard to drive today. For me, I am grateful I kept it out of the wall because that is where I wanted to go most of the time. A lot to take from it, and just getting acclimatized with the new power unit in the wet conditions. The settings it requires are different, and a different way of driving and a different setup on the steering wheel. I hung out as long as I could, got in the lead at one point, just the guidance with how much more rain was coming was missing there, so I think we missed out." A very interesting fact is the one that Hamilton struggled to get past Albon for a very long period of time and never actually managed to do it. But when he received messages regarding the utilisation of the K1 button, it was obvious that he is still learning the car, and at one point he even snapped at Adami saying that he is too far away to use that button. The communication between him and the race engineer is something that needs to get a bit more polished as we move forward with the season, something that F1 experts believe is going to be the priority to work on in the upcoming period. But I guess the most disappointing factor is the one where Hamilton received faulty information regarding the rain, because it ultimately ruined his race as he didn't have a say in the strategy whatsoever. This might be the reason why he took such a long pause after the radio message from Riccardo Adami as the race ended, and his response reminded us a lot about what we thought would be days to forget the last couple of years in Mercedes. Addressing his feelings about the race on the team radio, Hamilton said, "Yeah, it wasn't great, but we keep pushing." But prior to this, we were witnesses to some very angry radio messages from Hamilton, one in which he blamed Riccardo Adami for giving him false information regarding the duration of the rain. When talking about it, he went on to say, "I thought you said it wasn't going to rain much. We lost a big opportunity there." To this, Adami responded with "understood only," which is definitely kind of painful for a 7-time world champion to hear, especially when you're spending the majority of your race looking at the rear end of a Williams car. The quest for the 8th started very poorly, and while part of that can be written to Hamilton still getting to know the car, the communication process and the strategy are the primary factors as to why the team had the poor result they did, P8 and P10. Another fact that stands out is that Hamilton stated publicly that he was given the wrong information regarding the rain, which is something that many fans found was a brave move from the 7-time world champion. While he did take blame for the learning curve still taking place as he studied the behaviour of the car in the rain, there is still a lot of fault to be found in the race engineer as well. And when elaborating on why the race went so poorly for him, Hamilton said, "The rain intensified a little bit in the last sector, but the rest of the track was okay. Obviously, I didn't know where everybody else was. I knew people had stopped in the pits, but ultimately unfortunately, all of a sudden it started raining and I didn't know. No one told me that it was raining more elsewhere, and all of a sudden I was faced with it around the rest of the track. It was a bit of an opportunity missed, but I am glad I kept it on track. But nevertheless, it's not just Hamilton who was deeply disappointed in how the race ended. Leclerc shared his thoughts on the Melbourne GP as well, and they are far from ideal. When talking about them, the Monegasque driver labelled the race as a missed opportunity, further elaborating, it was definitely a missed opportunity. I mean, especially in those conditions when it's changing and that you don't have the pace. It's there that you got to score the points, and we didn't do that today. We were not fast enough at the beginning of the race when it was kind of boring, and then once it mattered to make the right choice, we didn't. But the first one to blame is my mistake out of turn 11, because I lost 4 positions from those mistakes, and then it puts us on the back foot. And if you look 3 or 4 positions in front, then we are 3rd or 4th, which I think was what could be done, but it's the way it is. Leclerc himself had tons of moments with the race engineer Bozzi, with the one standing out the most being the fact that his seat was full of water, to which Brian replied that it must be from all the water from the outside. It's the last thing that you want to say to a struggling driver who gained a couple of places on the start but was so far away from Russell's pace and didn't look like he would have any chance to pass him on pure merit. Ferrari's disappointment primarily lays on the fact that Leclerc admitted on Saturday that they made a sacrifice in order to be more competitive in the race. However, they were arguably slower than McLaren, Red Bull and Mercedes, and if we are to look at the race pace from Hamilton, you can say they were slower than Racing Bulls and Williams as well. When talking about where the team stood in terms of pure race competitiveness, Leclerc said, "We were definitely very off in terms of pace compared to the McLarens and Max, so we'll look into it. But yes, for sure, we were struggling today. We were pretty similar to the Mercedes in front, but that was it. Then McLaren and Red Bull were so much faster, so there is a lot of work to be done." But the lack of communication in their own pit wall is something that the team can't afford to do at any given time throughout the 2025 season, given the fact that the competitiveness has ramped up massively. McLaren seem to be in a league of their own. Verstappen is delivering a masterclass of a drive, and you can't always count on poor qualifying sessions from Lawson and Antonelli to go in your favour either. This is where the question arises, can Hamilton change the culture in Ferrari? The team ultimately had at least one podium finish in their hand before the strategy unfolded the way it did, and even though Leclerc admitted to his mistake, it was after the pit stop being way too late, so it didn't actually change that much. The situation needs to change drastically, and if Ferrari wants to compete for race wins and for championships, they need to understand the importance of communication and the trust that the driver needs to have in their race engineer. So far, it seems like there is a lot of learning to be done, but be that as it may, what are your thoughts on Hamilton's debut with Ferrari, and more importantly, do you think he can change something in terms of the team's communication and shot calling, which is their Achilles heel right now? Let us know in the comments below, and if you want to know more about Lawson's horrible debut that put him in a very poor situation from the start of the season, make sure to check out the video that appears on your screen right now.